obviously the end goal is driving business.
Yeah.
Right, because that's why we exist. Um, but when you've got long sales cycles, what are your KPIs in between that? Like, how do you know if you run an event or if you put a white paper out and you get people clicking on it, get people looking at it, downloading it, all that type of great stuff? How do you know that is contributing towards that end goal? Like, what do you report on and what do you look at to give you a guide?
So I think this applies to any organization, but it's key the marketing metrics reflect those of the business. So there's no point talking about click-throughs and number of interactions. Like, people just don't care.
Yep.
Like, they care about revenue, brand monitors, customer experience monitors. So we try and align as closely to those as possible. I think in general, my advice would be direct contribution is core metric. Engaged revenue, where you can't measure direct contribution, but you have you're involved in driving deals where they're not going to be filling out a lead form or it's MQL driven. That's often larger accounts. And then have your brand metrics and your customer experience metrics. If you can tie everything into those, and things like followers and click-throughs, they're part of the input factors to those, so you can measure it more daily. That's fine, but when you're reporting to the business and you're reporting up, you need metrics that
actually matter.
Resonate.
Yeah, definitely. The engaged revenue, is that kind of looking at like the brands and the people that are interacting with your marketing that are directly leading to revenue or are already in the pipeline or spending?
Yeah, I'll talk about this in my broader experience rather than talking about LSIG specifically, but it's about creating a model where you can see, using your CRM or your CDP, what customers are interacting with your marketing for a particular account that's engaged in a sales process. And
Gotcha.
You're able to then say, from you normally set a threshold of the number of interactions that they would have, and then you can say you're engaging a client that's about to sign a deal that's million ARR, whatever.
That's really so. So if you've got, I don't know, think of a business name.
Bank A. Let's call it Bank A. That's always the safest.
Bob's Bank.
Bob's Bank.
Bob's Bank is in your pipeline.
Yeah.
He's at stage 6.
Yeah.
And he's 70% likely to sign.
Yeah.
And you then go, well, actually, Bob's Bank has engaged with this piece of content, that piece of content, that piece of content, that piece of content, and is now moving through the pipeline that bit quicker, or the conversations are better, and you can prove a contribution to that pipeline journey.
Yes, exactly. And you know that Bob's Bank...
Sorry.
Yeah, good old Bob's Bank. You know that Bob's Bank, they've got an account manager. They're not going to go onto your website and fill out a form. They're not going to ring your OpGen team. So you're never going to get that lead.
Yes.
So that's why the engaged revenue model is so key.
I love that, because so often the expectation, well, particularly with large deal sizes, with big contract terms and everything else, not many people are going to click on an ad and fill out a form and turn into a humongous customer. Doesn't really work like that. So I think that's a really, really interesting point. Like, it's really, really good. Technically doing that, I think, is getting harder with people working remotely, working from home, because there used to be tech like Lead Forensics. I don't know if you've worked with them before, but where they'll kind of look at the IPs of people that come into the site and tell you which brands are visiting. Then you can use that to measure your brand interactions. Have you got any tech recommendations on making that engaged revenue or engaged customer metric work?
So I think it's quite, this is where I find my background useful, because I grew up as a digital marketer as opposed to a brand or a product marketer, and there's no right way to grow up.
No.
I feel I can really lean into that when sort of talking about and answering these challenges. You obviously need to be clear on your requirements, so it varies by business. You need to understand what the value is that you're trying to measure and how your business operates, but you ideally need some kind of CDP, a customer data platform. If you've got a platform that's taking data in and is able to build profiles of customers, obviously within all of the privacy regulations, then you're able to see the customers in a particular account and the interactions they have with you, and then you're able to model off that. So CDPs are quite critical to be able to do this.
Yeah, it's I think it's such an interesting way of viewing it. I think the getting the tech stack correct to make that happen is really difficult.
Yeah.
Because you got to get your CRM to line up with your CDP, then all your digital activities got to be tracked correctly. The website's got to work correctly from that perspective. But once you get to that,
And as you know, these lovely walled gardens that we're faced with Facebook and Google and LinkedIn, that data isn't easy to ingest into those kind of models. So there are restrictions, but then they're almost restricting themselves, because you're not going to be, it'll show that for, when you start doing attribution models off the back of this kind of engaged revenue, you're probably going to be putting less money there because it's less trackable in terms of your overall engaged revenue.
I think on that, it's so easy to make the wrong decision.
Yeah.
With where you're investing.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have that complete picture, you could easily turn something off that's really contributing kind of top of funnel activity and pulling people through, and vice versa, and you get in a real sticky spot.
And where we started with B2C, the beauty and brilliance and amazing part of B2C is it's measurable. Often it's measurable, not always, and not always at the brand level, but you can do stuff that's very measurable. If you have that same kind of measurement in a B2B context with engaged revenue and with direct contribution, because they complement each other, then it just makes justifying the spend a lot easier.